The old library was almost empty. Only one man sat awake inside it. The historian sat at a heavy wooden table. Candles burned low beside him. Their small flames shook whenever a cold wind passed through the tall window. Books, scrolls, and loose pages lay in soft piles around his hands. For many years, this was his home. He liked the quiet sound of turning pages more than the noise of the outside world. Tonight, he was more tired than usual. His eyes hurt, and his back felt stiff. Still, he did not want to sleep. There was one more book he wished to read. He pulled a worn leather book from the stack. The cover was cracked and dark, like old bread crust. No title was written on the outside. Only a small symbol of wheat and a millstone was pressed into the leather. The historian opened the book carefully. The pages were yellow and thin. Some corners were burnt. On the first page, in hard, old-fashioned writing, he read a strange line. Their daily bread kept them strong. Our bread makes us weak. He stopped and frowned. The words were simple, but they felt heavy. He knew the past was not easy. Medieval people were often poor. They feared winter, disease, and war. Many went to bed hungry. How could their bread be better than the soft white bread of today, when shops are full and shelves never empty? He leaned closer to the page. The candlelight made the ink shine. The book began to speak of dark loaves, stone mills, and the bread of the peasants that even kings envied. It described long days of farm work and nights where the only real meal was a thick slice of heavy bread dipped in hot broth. The historian's mind tried to picture this bread. Not the light, fluffy slices in plastic bags. Not the sweet rolls in bright boxes. Something older. Something rough, simple, and strong. He turned another page. On the next sheet, there was a faded drawing. It showed a small village oven made of stone and clay. Smoke rose out of a crooked chimney. A woman held a wooden paddle with round loaves resting on it. Beside the drawing, in smaller handwriting, someone had written, "Here lies the secret of the strong body." The historian slowly read the line again. A secret? In an oven? In bread? He sat back in his chair. The candle beside him had burned almost halfway down. Wax ran in small rivers onto the brass holder. Outside the tall window, the sky was dark. But far away, over the hills, there was a thin line of silver. Dawn was coming. For a moment, the historian thought about closing the book and going to sleep. But the strange words would not leave his mind. Strong body, weak bread, he whispered. His thoughts wandered to the modern city beyond the library walls. He imagined the early morning streets. People running to work, holding paper cups of coffee and soft white bread stuffed with cheese or sugar. A bakery sign flashing in red and blue lights. Children eating sweet rolls in the back seats of cars, crumbs on their clothes. All fast. All easy. All forgettable. He thought of the doctor's waiting room he had seen last week. So many tired faces. People sitting with their hands on their stomachs or their heads. Phones in their hands, plastic wrappers in the trash. It was strange. Food had never been more plentiful, and yet people often felt unwell. Why? His eyes moved back to the old book. The pages did not glow, but they seemed to hold something, like an oven holding heat after the fire goes out. He turned more pages. There were short notes about stone grinding, where heavy stones turned slowly and crushed whole grains without burning them. There were notes about sourdough, a living dough kept from day to day, rising slowly through the night. The book spoke of bread that was brown as earth and heavy as a worker's hand, bread that filled the belly and kept the legs strong until sunset. Sometimes there were small stories hidden between the lines. A miller who refused to throw away the bran, saying, "The shell is the shield of the grain and of the man." A baker who marked loaves with symbols so each family could find its own bread in the communal oven. A peasant who joked that his loaf was so thick that even a king's knife could not cut it. The historian smiled a little at that. But his smile faded when he thought of modern bread again, bread that stayed soft for many days, bread that bent but did not break, bread that smelled more of sugar than of wheat. He closed the book halfway and pressed his hand on the leather cover. He stared at the words still visible near the edge of the page. Their daily bread kept them strong. What if it was true? What if the poorest people in history, with their rough, dark bread, had known something that the rich modern world had forgotten? The library was very quiet now. Even the small night sounds had gone. Only the low hiss of candle flame and the scratching of his sleeve on the table filled the room. The historian stood up slowly and walked to the window. The sky outside was turning pale, the color of fresh flour before it is baked. A few birds began to sing. He placed his hand on the cold stone of the window frame. He thought of the woman in the drawing, standing by the village oven. He thought of the man in the field, chewing a thick slice of bread as he worked. He thought of the long line of hands that had passed that sourdough starter from mother to daughter, year after year. Then he thought of the people in the doctor's waiting room, holding their soft sandwiches and their aching stomachs. Slowly, the historian turned back to the table. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and wrote one line. Find the truth about their bread. He looked again at the picture of the oven and the note beside it, here lies the secret of the strong body. He realized he could not leave this question alone. He would follow every clue in the book. He would read old records of mills and ovens. He would compare them to modern bakeries and factories. He would travel, if he had to old villages where people still baked in the ancient way. He sat down, opened the book wide, and took a deep breath. Outside, the first light of morning slid into the library and touched the edge of the pages. The narrator's voice, soft and calm, closes the scene with a question. If poor villagers, with their rough hands and simple tools, ate bread that kept them strong, while modern bread leaves so many people weak and tired, what secret did they know that the modern world has forgotten? Morning comes quietly to the village. The sky is still pale and soft when the first thin lines of smoke rise from small chimneys. The roofs are low and dark, made of old wood and straw. The air smells of damp earth, cold ashes, and a little bit of animal smell from the barns. A rooster stands on a fence post and crows loudly. His call cuts through the gray light and wakes the village. Inside a small house, a peasant family begins to move. Joan opens her eyes first. She is not young, but not old either. Her hands are hard from work, her hair tied back with a simple cloth. She lies for a moment, listening. She hears the rooster. She hears a cart will creak somewhere outside. She hears her youngest child turning in sleep and mumbling. Her husband, Tomas, lies beside her on the straw bed. His shoulders are broad from lifting, from plowing, from years in the fields. He gives a small cough and blinks awake. Their first thought in the quiet morning is not of meat. Not of sweets. Not of wine or cheese. Their first thought is bread. Joan sits up and pulls the blanket away. The air is cold, but she does not complain. She has done this every morning for many years. She steps onto the packed dirt floor and crosses the room in a few quick steps. In the corner, on a low wooden shelf, sits a heavy clay bowl. She lifts the cloth that covers it. Inside lies something that looks simple, but is full of life. A soft, bubbling mass of dough. This is her sourdough starter. Her mother kept it before her. Her grandmother kept it before that. Sometimes it grows weak and needs new flour and water. Sometimes it grows strong and rises fast. But it never truly dies, as long as someone feeds it. Joan smiles softly at the smell. It is sour and warm, like a mix of apples and vinegar and wheat. She dips her fingers in and feels it gently. Back in the library far away in time, the old historian turns a page in his book. He reads a few lines about living dough that passes from hand to hand, from one generation to another. He imagines Joan doing exactly what he has just read. The story returns to the village. Joan's children wake up one by one. The oldest boy pulls on his rough wool shirt. The younger girl rubs her eyes and shivers as her feet touch the cold floor. They do not ask, "What is for breakfast?" They already know. Their father Tomas sits up and stretches his arms. He knows he must work in the field soon. To do that, he must eat. To eat, he needs bread. Joan covers the bowl again for the moment. Then she reaches for a cloth bag hanging near the door. She weighs it in her hand and frowns. It feels light. "We need more flour," she says. Tomas nods. He takes a heavy sack from the wall hook. The oldest boy, eager to help, takes a smaller bag. Joan wraps her shawl around her shoulders and calls the children to follow. They step outside into the morning air. The village is waking. Another rooster crows. Dogs bark lazily. A woman fills a bucket at the well. Somewhere, a man laughs as he leads a donkey from its stall. The family walks along the narrow dirt path that leads to the stone mill. The mill stands near a stream, because it needs water to turn its great wheel. The building is strong and low, made of thick stone blocks. The sound of grinding fills the air, a low, steady growl, like distant thunder. Inside, it is both dusty and bright. Sunlight comes through a small window and cuts through clouds of fine flour. Flour dust dances in the light like tiny ghosts. The miller stands by the huge grinding stones. He is a thick man with white hair in his beard and flour on his clothes. He lifts a hand in greeting as he sees Joan and her family. "You've come early," he says. "Bread does not bake itself," Joan answers with a small smile. The miller laughs and goes back to work. A wooden hopper above the stones holds the whole grains. Wheat, rye, barley, maybe a little oats. They pour slowly between the massive stones. The lower stone stands still. The upper stone turns and turns, powered by the water wheel outside. The historian's voice enters gently, as if he is telling the story from his library chair. For this family, bread is not a small side dish. It is most of their food for the whole day. The camera, in your mind, moves closer to the stones. We see grains go in. We see rough brown flour fall out below into a sack. Nothing is taken away. The hard outer shell, the bran, stays in the flour. The rich, oily heart of the grain, the germ, also stays in. This flour is not white and light. It is dark and full of tiny specks. The historian explains, in simple words. For Joan, this flour is life. If the bread made from it is strong, she and her family can work all day. They can walk far, lift tools, and face the cold. If the bread is weak, if the flour is poor, they will feel it in their arms, in their legs, in their bones. Tomas and his son hold open their empty bags. The miller pulls a lever, and the fresh milled flour pours down like a brown waterfall. The air is thick with powder now. Joan coughs and laughs a little, brushing her apron. When the bags are full, Tomas ties them with strong cords. He lifts the heavy sack onto his shoulder. The boy staggers a little with his smaller bag, but he does not complain. He wants to be as strong as his father one day. They thank the miller and walk back through the village. Other families are heading the same way, toward the oven later. A girl balances dough in a wooden bowl. An old woman carries a flat board dusted with flour. Everyone is thinking of bread. Back at the house, Joan pours some of the fresh flour into a large wooden trough. She adds water, a pinch of salt, and a scoop of the living sourdough from the clay bowl. She mixes with her hands, pushing and folding, pushing and folding. The dough is heavy and sticky. It clings to her fingers, but soon it begins to smooth out. Her children watch, then help by dusting flour on the top. The historian's voice returns. This bread will not be ready in an hour. The dough must rest. The living sourdough must eat, grow, and fill it with tiny bubbles. The family will wait, because they know what this bread gives them. As the dough rises, the family does small morning tasks. Tomas checks the tools. The children bring in more wood. Joan peeks under the cloth now and then, watching the dough grow. At last, when the dough has risen and feels full of air, Joan divides it. She shapes dark, heavy loaves with strong hands, round, simple, without decoration. Each loaf looks like a small, brown stone. She places them on wooden boards, leaving some space between them. She marks each loaf with a small cut, her family's sign, so she can find them later in the communal oven. The morning is brighter now. They are almost ready to go. The part ends with a quiet, steady image. Joan stands in her doorway, holding the board of shaped loaves. Her children stand beside her. Behind them, the clay bowl of sourdough rests again on the shelf, waiting for the next day. The historian's voice says softly. For Joan and her family, bread is not just a side on the plate. It is the center of life. And because of that, every step, from grain to flour, from dough to loaf, truly matters. With that, they walk toward the village oven, carrying the future of their day in their hands. The sun has climbed a little higher when Joan and her family reach the communal oven. It stands near the center of the village, a big, round, stone building with a wide mouth like a sleeping animal. The walls are blackened from years of smoke. The roof is low and curved. Children run past it, playing, while their mothers call them back. Inside, the heat from yesterday's baking still lives in the stones. The village baker, a broad man with rolled-up sleeves and dark hair, stands by the open oven mouth. He holds a long wooden paddle. His face shines with sweat, and his shirt is covered in flour. He pushes glowing coals to the back of the oven with a metal rake, making sure the fire is spread just right. He checks the flames with a careful eye. If the oven is too hot, the bread will burn on the outside and stay raw inside. If the oven is too cool, the bread will be pale and heavy, and people will complain. He spits lightly on the palm of his hand, feels the heat, and nods. Good enough, he says to himself. Outside, Joan and other women stand in a loose line. Each woman carries a board or a cloth with shaped loaves resting on top. Each loaf has a small cut, a symbol, or a pattern on its surface. A cross. A circle. 3 slashes. A simple mark from a knife. These signs are important. When the bread goes inside the oven, all the loaves will bake together. When they come out, the marks will show whose bread is whose. Joan's loaves are marked with a small curved line, like a single wave of water. Her children stand close, excited and a little proud. The old historian, in his faraway library, turns another page in his book and follows their story in his mind. His quiet voice begins to explain, like a teacher telling a gentle secret. There were 3 quiet secrets in their bread, he says. They did not shout. They did not glow. But they worked in every loaf. The first secret is whole grains. The historian speaks simply. In Joan's flour, nothing is polished away. The outer shell of the grain, the bran, is still there. The rich, oily heart, the germ, is still there. They do not throw these away to make the flour white. They keep it all. Because of this, their bread is darker. It is heavier. It is not soft like a cloud. But it feeds the body in a deeper way. As he talks, we see a short image in our mind. A handful of whole grains. Brown and gold, with tiny beards and rough shells. Then a second picture, bright white flour blowing like dust on a city street much later in time. The second secret is stone grinding. The historian continues. In their time, flour is made between two heavy stones. The stones turn slowly. The grain is crushed, not shredded. The flour never becomes too hot. When flour gets too hot, some of what is inside the grain is changed or lost. Stone grinding keeps more of the grain's true nature. It is not perfect. Nothing is perfect. But it is slow, and slow work is often careful work. We see again the inside of the mill, the slow roll of the water wheel, the steady grind of stone on stone, and the rough flour falling like soft sand into a sack. The third secret is time, the long, slow work of living dough. The historian's voice softens even more. Their dough is not dead. It is alive, full of tiny creatures too small to see. Yeasts and friendly bacteria live in the sourdough starter. He explains in simple words. When Joan mixes flour, water, salt, and the old starter together, she does not bake the loaf at once. She lets it rest. She lets it rise. Sometimes for many hours. Sometimes overnight. During this time, the living things inside the dough are busy. They eat some parts of the grain. They turn them into gas that makes bubbles. They change the dough slowly. This long time helps break down some parts of the grain. It may make the bread easier to digest. It may help the body take in what it needs more gently. To show this, the story returns to Joan's house, earlier that morning. We see the dough resting in a cool corner of the room. It sits under a cloth, not moving at first. Then, slowly, tiny bubbles appear on the surface. The dough rises, spreads, and becomes softer. Joan lifts the cloth and smiles. She presses her fingers in gently and feels the spring. Her eyes can't see the tiny yeasts and bacteria, but she knows they are there. She trusts the dough because her mother trusted it, and her grandmother before that. Now, in the present moment at the oven, all three secrets are inside Joan's loaves. Whole grain. Stone-ground flour. Long, living sourdough. The baker begins to take loaves from each woman and girl in line. He slides them into the oven with his long wooden paddle. The glowing floor inside the oven is hot, but not blazing. He places the loaves in neat rows, one after another, turning the paddle with practice. Joan steps forward and offers her board. Her children watch as the baker checks the marks on their loaves and nods. "These are yours," he says. He pushes them into the oven, next to the others. Soon, the oven is full of bread. The baker lets the flames die down. He pulls burning logs to the side and sweeps the floor quickly with a wet cloth on a stick. Then he closes the heavy oven door made of wood and metal. Outside, the women step back. They talk quietly while they wait. Some sew. Some share small bits of news. Children chase each other and draw lines in the dirt with sticks. Time passes. Slow time. Important time. The historian watches this scene with a kind of respect. He writes in his notebook. They give the bread time in 3 ways. Time in the field for the grain to grow. Time in the mill for the stones to turn. Time in the dough for life to work. After a while, the baker touches the side of the oven with his hand. He can feel the heat changing. He listens to the faint sounds inside, as if he can hear the crusts forming. At last, he lifts the door. A wave of hot air and rich smell rolls out. It is deep and comforting, warm grain, dark crust, a hint of sour, a hint of smoke. He begins to pull the loaves out with his paddle. They are dark and thick, with hard crusts that crack under his fingers. Each loaf is marked, so each finds its owner again. The women and children move forward eagerly, faces bright. Joan receives her loaves. She taps one with her knuckle. It makes a hollow sound. Good. She presses her nose close and breathes in. Later, at home, the family sits around the table. On the table there is a pot of simple soup made from vegetables and maybe a small piece of meat or bone. A little cheese. And the new bread. Tomas cuts the loaf with a strong knife. It does not bend or crumble easily. The inside is dense and dotted with small holes. Steam rises. Each person gets a thick slice. They dip the bread into the soup. They chew slowly. The bread is heavy, but it fills the stomach for a long time. It gives them strength for the fields, for carrying wood, for walking many miles. Back in the library, the old historian closes his eyes for a moment, as if he can smell that bread across hundreds of years. He opens his notebook and writes one simple line. Their bread is simple. Yet it is full of grain. Full of time. And full of life. He underlines the words once, then looks out at the faint light of the new day, thinking about how different that bread is from the bread most people eat now. Many years pass. Then many more. The village oven grows cold. The stone mill stops turning. The simple house where Joan once baked her bread slowly falls down. Grass and weeds cover the old path. The story jumps forward through time. Now there are smokestacks on the horizon. Dark clouds rise into the sky. Trains rush past fields that used to be quiet. Their wheels scream on the iron tracks. Cities grow larger and louder every year. In these new cities, people live close together. They work in factories, offices, and crowded shops. They do not have time or space for their own ovens. They need food that is fast, cheap, and easy to move. Inside a tall brick building, a new kind of mill is at work. This is not Joan's stone mill by the stream. There is no slow water wheel now. Instead there are roller mills, great machines with long turning metal cylinders. Whole grains pour into the top. The rollers spin quickly and tear the grain apart. They break it into very fine pieces. The flour comes out soft and white, like new snow. Workers stand at the end of the line. They take away the rough, brown parts of the grain, the bran and the germ. These parts are thrown aside or used for animal feed. What is left for people is the smooth, white center of the grain. People like this new flour. It makes bread that is light and pale, like clouds. White bread becomes a sign of wealth and clean food. Dark bread begins to look poor, old, and heavy. The old historian reads about this change in his book. He sees simple drawings of rollers and mills, of white flour poured into sacks marked with factory names. He thinks of Joan's mill, where dust floated in the sunlight and stones turned slowly. The story moves into a busy city bakery. The baker here is not like Joan or the village baker who knew each family mark on each loaf. He wears a white coat and a white hat. He works with big metal mixers and large trays. He pours fine white flour into a machine. He adds water, salt, and something else from a small packet, fast yeast. He does not have time for sourdough that rests all night. His dough must be ready soon. He mixes it quickly, shapes it quickly, and lets it rise only for a short while. The bread that comes out of his hot ovens looks perfect. Long, smooth loaves. Golden tops. Soft, white insides. They are lined up in the shop window under bright lights. People stop and smile at them. They look clean, modern, and easy to eat. Back in the present, the historian walks into a modern supermarket. The lights are bright and a little cold. Soft music plays in the background. Carts squeak as they roll down the wide aisles. He looks up and sees a big sign above one row. Bread and bakery. He walks closer. The shelves do not hold baskets of loaves baked this morning. Instead, they are filled with plastic bags, each holding sliced bread. Some bags are white, some are bright colors with big letters and pictures. He picks up one bag and reads the label. He sees a long list of words. Wheat flour. Sugar. vegetable oil, emulsifiers, preservatives, flavoring, and more. He moves his finger down the list slowly. In his notebook from Joan's time, he wrote the 4 things she used: grain, water, salt, starter. He whispers those 4 words now. Then he looks again at the label in his hand. This is not the same, he says quietly. He picks up another bag, then another. The lists change a little but not much. There is always some extra sweetener. There is often oil. There are always things added to help the bread stay soft, keep its shape, or last longer on the shelf. The historian imagines Joan standing here beside him. How strange these soft, sliced loaves in shining plastic would look to her. How strange this silent, bright store would feel, with no warm oven, no smell of smoke or sourdough. He begins to speak in his calm narrator's voice, as if explaining to a child. This new bread is very easy to chew. Teeth do not have to work hard. It is light in the mouth and soft to bite. He holds a bag in one hand, feeling how little it weighs. But much of the fiber that was in the whole grain is gone. Much of the true grain itself is gone. With it, some of the flavor is gone too. He looks at a date on the package and presses the bread through the plastic. It springs back without breaking. It may stay this way for many days. It often stays soft, he says, not because it is fresh, but because of what has been added. He walks down the aisle. On a lower shelf, he finds whole grain bread. The label is brown and green, with pictures of fields and leaves. He picks it up and reads. There are more grain parts here, and that is good. But the list still includes many extra things: sugar, oils, improvers, and long names that do not sound like foods. He does not scowl. He does not speak with anger. He simply looks sad. In his mind, the image of Joan's table appears again. He sees her dark loaf, baked in a hot stone oven, cut with a strong hand. He sees soup and cheese and tired children who are strong enough to run and help. Then he looks at the bright packages again. He can see why people like them. They are cheap. They are soft. They are ready to eat any time. But something has been lost along the way. Time. Care. Simplicity. The historian decides to make a small test for himself. He buys 1 bag of modern sliced bread and leaves the supermarket. In his other pocket, he carries a sketch he once drew from the old book, a drawing of Joan's dark, round loaf with a cracked crust. He returns to his quiet study room. He sits at his wooden table and takes out both things. In his right hand, he holds a slice of modern soft bread. It bends easily. It is light. The holes are all the same size. In his left hand, he unfolds the sketch of Joan's loaf, thick, uneven, heavy, marked with her simple curved sign. He places them both on the table in front of him. For a moment, he says nothing. He simply looks from one to the other. The candle beside him flickers. The room is very quiet. He thinks of the long line of hands that once worked with grain, stone, and living dough. He thinks of machines, roller mills, and factories. He thinks of how bread changed when people tried to make it faster, lighter, and cheaper. Then, in a soft voice, he asks the question that hangs over the whole story. Which of these truly feeds the body better? And which one only fills the mouth for a moment and is quickly forgotten? The scene ends with that picture. A tired historian, a slice of modern bread. And a simple drawing of a dark old loaf. Waiting for the viewer to decide what real bread means to them. Morning light falls on 2 very different worlds. On one side of the screen, Joan's husband, Tomas, stands in a wide, open field. The earth is dark and rich. The sky is big above him. He holds a wooden-handled tool and works the soil with slow, strong movements. His shirt is rough. His hands are hard. Sweat shines on his forehead. On the other side of the screen, a modern office worker sits at a desk. The sky is hidden behind glass and walls. White lights buzz softly overhead. A screen glows in front of his tired eyes. He wears a clean shirt and soft chair under him, but his shoulders are tight. The narrator's voice connects the two scenes. Both men must work all day, the historian says gently. Both need energy. Both eat bread. But what their bread does inside the body is different. We watch Tomas in the field. At midday, he puts down his tool and sits on a low rock. He reaches into a cloth bag and pulls out a chunk of dark bread, the same kind Joan baked in the village oven. The crust is hard. The inside is dense and slightly sour. He also has a small piece of cheese and a bit of onion. He eats slowly. He must chew the bread well, it does not disappear in the mouth at once. It feels heavy in his hand, but warming in his stomach. After he eats, he stands up again. He still feels the bread sitting solidly inside him, giving him a quiet strength as he goes back to work. Now we look at the office worker. It is midday for him too. He opens a plastic box or paper bag. Inside is a sandwich made from soft white bread. The bread bends easily and leaves a mark when he presses it with a finger. It is filled with sweet spread or processed meat. He eats quickly, eyes still half on the glowing screen. The sandwich is gone in a few minutes. He does not need to chew much. He feels full for a little while, then the feeling fades. Later in the afternoon, his stomach starts to feel empty again. His eyes grow heavy. He reaches for coffee, biscuits, or something else sweet. The historian sits at his wooden table with his notes and begins to explain, using simple words, almost as if he is talking to a child. Tomas's bread is made from whole grain. The bran and germs stay in the flour. His bread takes longer for the body to break down. It moves more slowly through him. We see simple drawings, like pictures from a children's book. One drawing shows a round stomach with a smiling face. Inside it, small pieces of dark bread mix with soup. Arrows move slowly through a long tube, showing food passing calmly. The historian continues. Because that bread is heavy and full of grain parts, it can help move food through the body. It does not rush. It gives a steady kind of energy. Now the camera shows a drawing of the modern stomach. This stomach has a worried or restless face. Inside it, we see soft, pale bread and bright dots of sugar. Arrows move very fast at first, then stop and swirl around. The historian says. Modern bread, especially very soft white bread with sweet things, is often quick to digest. It breaks apart fast. The stomach may feel full for a short time, then empty again. Sometimes the person feels hungry again very soon. He speaks slowly, careful not to sound like he is giving orders. This does not mean all old bread was perfect or that all modern bread is bad. Life is more complex than that. But many modern doctors and food experts now look back and say something important. Whole, slow bread may have been kinder to the body than much of the fast, soft bread people eat today. The scene returns to Tomas in the field. The sun has moved across the sky. He has worked for many hours, bending, lifting, walking. His legs are tired. His arms are tired. But the bread he ate at midday still gives him a quiet base of strength. In the evening, he goes home to Joan and the children. They sit around the table. Again there is bread, thick slices of the dark loaf, along with a simple soup and perhaps a little more cheese or vegetables. They eat together. After the meal, Tomas feels heavy and calm in his body. He is tired, but it is the clean tiredness of a day's work. When he lies down to sleep, his belly is not jumping or complaining. He sleeps deeply. On the other side of the screen, the office worker has finished his day. After hours under bright lights, his eyes ache. He has eaten his soft sandwich, a sweet drink, maybe some snacks. Later in the day, hunger poked at him again, so he grabbed more quick food, light bread, cookies, or something from a machine. Now, in the evening, his stomach does not know what it feels. Full? Empty? He lies down but finds it hard to rest. His mind races. He scrolls on his phone. He thinks about work tomorrow. The narrator does not judge him. He simply shows the two lives side by side. We see again the childlike drawings of the stomachs. On one side, the happy, calm stomach with dark bread and soup inside, smiling, with smooth arrows passing steadily downward. On the other, the restless stomach, full of very soft bread and sugar, with jagged arrows that spike and twist. The historian says, long ago, people did not know the words fiber or glycemic index or ultraprocessed food. They only knew what made them able to work, and what made them feel sick. They learned, by living, that heavy, whole bread, made with time and care, could carry them through long days. Today, we know many new words and have many new foods. Some are helpful. Some are not. But when modern experts study the past, many of them see wisdom in that older bread. He turns the page of his notebook and we see a mix of notes. Small sketches of grain, a few lines from old books, a simple drawing of Joan's oven, and beside it, a simple cartoon stomach with a smile. He does not say, "Stop eating this." He does not say, "You must eat that." Instead, he speaks very softly. The secret was not magic. There was no spell baked into their loaf. He taps 3 words on the page with his finger. Whole grain. Patience. Respect. They used the whole grain, he says. Not just the white center. They gave the dough time to rise and change. And they treated bread as something serious. Something that had to be done properly, because it was the heart of their meal. The scene closes with the historian alone in his study. On his table are 2 things. A small, homemade dark loaf he has tried to bake using Joan's method from the book. And a soft, sliced piece of modern bread from the store. He looks at them both. He thinks again of Tomas in the field and the office worker at the desk. He whispers, almost to himself. The real secret was not in some lost recipe. It was in how they saw their food. Whole grain. Patience. And respect. The candle beside him burns low. The page in front of him waits for the final part of the story. The night is almost over. Once again, the story returns to the old library, just as it did at the start. Outside, the sky is no longer black. It is turning a soft gray-blue. Pale light slips through the tall window and draws a thin line on the wooden floor. The candles on the historian's table are very low now. Their flames are small and tired, almost ready to die. Wax has run down the sides and hardened in little rivers. The historian sits where he always sits, at the same heavy wooden table, surrounded by old books and quiet air. His eyes are soft, not sharp like before. He has been thinking, not just reading. On the table in front of him lie 2 pieces of bread. On one side is a small homemade loaf, baked in the old way. It is round and dark, with a cracked crust. He has tried, as best he can, to follow Joan's world: whole grain, stone-ground flour, sourdough, a hot oven. On the other side is a slice of soft modern bread from the shop. It is light in color, almost white. The surface is smooth. The slice bends easily when he lifts one corner. Between them lies his big, worn book. 15 Kings and Queens Who Could Not Stay Sober. He opens it near the back, where he has been reading about feasts, taverns, and royal habits. There are notes in the margins about wine, ale, and strong drink. But now, in a small empty space beside a chapter about daily life, he takes out his pen. In careful, slow writing, he adds a new note about bread. The camera, in your mind, moves close enough to see the words as he writes them. Bread is not only food. It is a mirror of its time. When people had little, their bread had much. When people had plenty, some bread lost its soul. He pauses, thinking, then adds just one more simple line beneath. Real bread, whole grain, stone ground, slowly risen, baked hot. He puts the pen down and closes the book with a gentle thump. His hand rests on the leather cover for a long moment. The narrator's voice comes in softly, almost like a sigh. Medieval people were not perfect. Many were hungry. Their lives were hard, cold, and often unfair. But when they had bread, it was real bread. The flour still held the whole grain. Stones turned slowly and did not burn the flour. The dough rose with living sourdough, not in minutes, but in hours. And the loaves baked in hot ovens that filled the village with deep, rich smell. We see short flashes of the past. Joan at the mill, holding the sack of rough brown flour. The village women standing in line at the oven, their marked loaves on wooden boards. Tomas in the field, chewing a thick slice of dark bread. The children falling asleep with full bellies after soup and bread. Then the narrator continues. Over time, people began to trade these things away. They traded whole grain for white, soft flour. They traded stone mills for fast metal rollers. They traded long, patient sourdough for quick yeast. They traded time and grain for speed and softness. We see fast-moving images. Roller mills spinning. Factory lines of loaves dropping into plastic bags. Bright supermarket shelves, full and silent. The historian looks down at the two breads on his table again. First, he takes the dark loaf. With a small knife, he cuts into it. The crust cracks and breaks under the blade. The inside is not perfect. It is a bit uneven. There are tiny holes and a faint sour smell. He breaks off a piece with his fingers and holds it close to his nose. He smiles softly, not a big smile, but one of quiet respect. He eats the piece slowly. You can almost hear the crust as he bites. His jaw moves more than it would with soft bread. He has to chew, and the taste stays in his mouth for a while. Then he lifts the slice of modern bread. It bends easily in his hand. He tears it in half. It makes almost no sound. He eats a small piece. It disappears quickly. He is not angry at it. He is not disgusted. He simply knows it is different. He leans back in his chair and looks at both breads resting on the wooden table. The narrator speaks again, in very gentle words. He is not here to tell anyone what they must eat. He is not giving rules or orders. He is only sharing what the past can teach. That there was a time when people put huge care into their bread. Because bread was the center of their life. That whole grain, patience, and respect for food were not special ideas. They were normal. The morning light grows a little stronger. It touches the edge of the historian's book, then the crust of the dark loaf, then the tired face of the man who has spent his life listening to old stories. He slowly stands up. His back is stiff, but he moves with calm habit. On the table, only one candle is still burning. Its flame is small and shaky, almost out of wax. The historian leans over and blows it out. For a second, a thin trail of smoke curls upward. Then it fades into the air. The library is not dark, though. Dawn has taken the job of the candle. Soft, cool light fills the room in a quiet way. The historian walks to a tall shelf along the wall. His fingers move slowly along the backs of old books. There are hundreds of them, each full of someone's memories and someone's questions. He stops when he sees one with a familiar drawing on its cover. This one is smaller than the big kings and queens book. The leather is cracked but still strong. On the front, in faded gold, there is a picture of a mug and a barley stalk. He pulls it out gently. The camera, or the viewer's eye, rests on this new book for a moment. We do not open it yet. We only see the title written in small, neat letters. The narrator gives a soft, almost playful tease. If their bread held one secret, their everyday drink held another. But that is a story for another night. The historian carries the new book back to his table. He does not open it yet. He puts it down where the candle once stood, in the center of the pale light. The scene slowly fades out. Soft, calm music rises, a simple tune, gentle and old-sounding, like something played on a lute or flute in a quiet hall. As the picture darkens, the logo of Quiet Historian Stories appears. The feeling left behind is not fear, not anger, not guilt. It is something quieter. A small respect for people who lived long ago. And a quiet question about what we choose to eat. And what that says about the world we have built.